It's time for the Movie Raid Movie Review, and tonight I'm going to talk about The Breakfast Club. The story takes place about these kids who have a morning detention, and they're all from different classes. You got the criminal, you've got the nerd, you've got the princess, you got the outcast, you got the jock, and they all in one room. And so they go through the motions of being a teenager, for one, and they do express some personal feelings between interaction between what's going on in school and their personal life with their parents and whatnot. The story itself, is so well written. Like it's almost like a guide, let alone probably the teenager Bible. To how to accept and adapt and deal with personal situations as a teenager in high school, because we've all gone through these kind of things that these characters have gone through. Everybody has been picked on, everybody has been shunned or made fun of, bullied, harshly criticized or judged. We've all been through that, at least one of these categories. And having each character from each background of teenagers that we, of high school, it's just amazing connection between each character. And the cast themselves did such an amazing job performing these characters. And we see every emotion and every reaction between the characters when they're talking to each other, when they're having conversations with each other, because they don't just know each other per se. They know of each other. Like, they've seen each other in the hallway. They've probably met each other, but bottom line is they don't really talk to each other or interact or anything like that. But in some cases, they don't like them, based on the kind of group they are associated with. So everything in this movie, for such just the one main room, which is the library, for the most of the film, and you see these characters just in this particular room. I mean, I think it's a great way of how they just shot this. I mean, this is not like a simplistic shot view. This is here's these characters who are stuck in detention for X amount of hours, 8 hours, and you got the principal literally outside the door. And how do you make sure that you don't bore the audience with these characters just sitting there, right? And it doesn't get boring. I mean, we see the characters being bored, but we also see them eventually, diving into from kind of pleasantry dialogue to some personal dialogue, where they're actually talking about their personal experiences and how they end up being in there. And it's just very impactful as far as feeling every emotion from each of these characters and what they go through. And there's nothing but pure positive comments I could say about this film. I absolutely love this film. It's a great high school film. This is not a high school film where, you got a bunch of teenagers trying to get laid, okay? Because today's high school films, that's what I call it, high school films, or college films. It's always about the teenager trying to get laid, or, stupid crap, it's always a one-dimensional storyline with the teenagers. But in this case, we got these characters that are not one-dimensional, They want to be accepted in their own way, Let's talk about the characters individually, Well, I don't want to give up too much away. If you haven't seen The Breakfast Club, man, you really should. John Hughes did such an amazing job with this. I mean, if you love Home Alone, if you love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you're gonna love this film if you haven't seen it. I mean, if you love weird science, great stuff, great stuff. But we go through the emotions of these characters. So, like, let's talk about the criminal, Judd Nelson's character, like John, of how he perceived things. He does act like he's trying to gain attention, try to have an image, but he's not really a bully. But he's just kind of one of those people that just wants to be acknowledged and liked to a degree. And this is how he expresses it. And being a dick, this is what he does. But because we see that kind of connection between one character. For example, you got Emilio Estevez's character conflicting with Judd Nelson's character. And you got the jock versus the criminal, and then later on you've got the outcast versus the princess, in a way, as far as a verbal debate and as far as personal character, and I just absolutely love how these connections, like the way they connect to, and of course you got obviously the nerd versus everybody, or versus Emilio Estevez and Molly Ringwald's character, because let's talk about Michael Hall's character. He's a nerd, or always considered to be the nerd, always considered to be the squeaky clean type of character, and he does one thing that's completely out of his elements, and he's always done the good, right? And this time he does something bad, something wrong. He explains it in the story, and then because he doesn't want to have less than an A+. He doesn't want an A-. He doesn't want anything else like that. He wants a perfect grade, and he does this action, and it gets deep, and you feel for it. You really do, because I think all of us, has had a similar situation, or at least some form of a simulation of what he's talking about. And that's just one character to explain his situation, but it does lighten it up too. I mean, they do like the dance scene, they do whatever in the library, but I think it's hilarious that the principal doesn't hear any of this. They play the music really loud and they get high in the library, and yet this, I guess the halls are really thick walls, I guess. But I think it's funny that the principal, he himself is always considered to be a high profile, highly liked type of individual, but chances are kids don't like him at all, even though he kind of invented this this way of thinking that all the kids are liking him. But I definitely enjoy this character too. I like that he he just tries to be the head honcho pretty much, and that's pretty much how he perceives things. But back to the other characters, like the princess, Molly Ringwald's character, you can tell that she also has a problem with her parents. She also has possibly popularity issues, at least according to her, because again, we got to look at teenage perspective view. These are real problems to them, but as adult, we don't see it as very as very conflicting, but very trivial. But to these teenagers, they've gone through a lot. They've emotional. So like Molly Ringwald's character, her parents, they're getting a divorce or whatever, and obviously she doesn't really want to be a part of either one. She's just kind of stuck in the middle. She's kind of like the prop between her parents, she has to do this and they gotta do that, and how she ended up being in the detention, like is so unheard of for such a popular girl in school, right? And this is where John Nelson's character, kind of weeds her out in a way, kind of exposes her character, as her role as a popular kid in high school, but there's much more to this. Like, every character in this film tries to actually get the better out of each other. Like even John, who is this misfit, always gets in trouble, always causes, ruckus, but he's right on a lot of things. When we watch this film, he's right of how he kind of judges character on these characters in the film itself, And I definitely support him. I mean, he's not the main bad guy here. Honestly, and that's the thing. There's no bad guys or good guys in this movie. Like there's no deep drama or anything that we normally would see. What teenagers do. This is purely between characters who kind of try to get more out of each other in a positive light than just simply doing the traditional cause this and cause that, and here's a love interest here, the predictable traditional sense that we normally see in high school films. But and let's talk about Emilio Estevez's character, who plays as the jock. We see that he himself is going through issues with his own father, and we see that he just simply he's unhappy. He doesn't, you can tell he doesn't want to be an athlete anymore. Like he explains this again. All of this is being explained in the movie. There's no real spoiling anything in this movie. I mean, this is pretty much a character-based film. So if you haven't seen this movie, well, chances are you probably shouldn't be listening to this review. But anyway, the character of Emilio Estevez, the way, they expose how he exposes his story, honestly, he probably did it on purpose to get in detention just so he can get away with his old man, But the fact that he has that confliction with Judd Nelson's character, and they both they all expose their own character and kind of expose the truth from each character, and they kind of they kind of be okay with it, at the course of the film. And you got the outcast, who is misunderstood, and she herself have said that, what if we saw each other in the hall? Would you do this? And the truth comes out, and Molly Ringwald says no, probably not. As far as saying hey or liking them or anything like that, because based on what others would say about them. But this film dives so much into teenager issues than anything else that I've seen. I mean, I don't spend hours watching high school films, but this is what brings the level of drama, the level of understanding. And honestly, man, if I were to give this out of a 10, I'm giving this a 10 out of a 10 for this film, because we've all gone through every motions that these characters have gone through, and getting everybody from every kind of category, stereotype category in high school, they're all in one room. And there's nothing negative I could really say about this film. And I love the soundtrack. I love the music. I absolutely love it. Very 80s, very very fun, and it's just a great film. And if you haven't seen it, man, you're missing out on a great film, a treasure, per se, because this is something you should always share to your kids if you have kids, so they can understand what it's like to go through high school. Even today's modern society with all the cell phones and all this streaming and all this other crap, let them watch Breakfast Club, and whatever it is that the kid's going through, give them a little bit of a guide that, hey, instead of just telling you what you went through, give them an added dose of, like, this is what they went through and this is how they dealt with things. I mean, it's just an amazing film of really tapping into what it's like, being a kid and dealing, so much of everything, personal and social life.